To order. I just want to go over the ground rules a little bit. This is more of an opportunity for the audience to speak, and I think you'll have plenty of opportunity to speak.
I hope you have a lot to say.
Yes.
That's okay, you can sit silent.
A moment of quiet prayer before the holidays is also welcome. But we'd like to make sure that however we're moving forward in our path with Act 46, that we are giving the public ample opportunity to give us input, and so that we can make sure that we are looking at whatever path we choose through the eyes of what our community wants. We will be doing forums, however we're moving forward. If we go forward with an AGS, I would hope that we would put up to a public vote town meeting day. But this is not really a forum on an AGS or anything else. It's really just to hear from the public about what it is that's really critical for you, and just to maybe guide things a little bit, the things that were benefits in your mind as a voter and taxpayer in the town, and the things that were challenges with the merger.
As it was, you mean that's the one we
As it
voted on?
was, or to any merger, and yeah, and I guess thinking outside the box, thank you, Molly Stoner, is that, you know, is there a merger in there that is interesting to you, you know, or some sort of form of merger that would really, you know, maybe a vision is another topic, you know? I'll play it by ear, but I thought I'd put them up there, and then maybe that would guide the thinking for all the people in the room. So with that said, I'm listening. Would anybody like to?
Why don't you run us off exactly what's up to this point, what's happened since the vote, and what our board is talking about, Dummerston Board is talking about, and what other boards at the SU level is talking about?
I would be happy to take a stab at that. We started when the merger was voted down in all the towns. The subcommittee from Dummerston, which had been working with Brattleboro, and then Vernon came on in the summer before the vote, and I believe Putney even joined us in a non-official capacity, and then we had citizens from all 5 towns. Started talking about the Section 9 AGS under Act 46, which is a supervisory union with its member districts that are meeting the goals of Act 46. Basically keeping our governance the way we are, but thinking about how we could meet the goals of Act 46 within that governance structure. And so we have been thinking of ideas, talking about what was really important in our communities. For example, what we are calling limited school transfer, which is sort of public school choice, inter-district choice, not choice like Vernon has. But if a family moves, a child could stay in a school. That was something that was very important. So working, right, so if, you know, if I moved to Brattleboro and Max was really happy here in Dummerston, then is there some way he could stay here? And that was something that was a really great benefit of merging, and so was there some way to do this? And so we started tackling those issues that we thought we all were really important to all of our community and to the children as well. I mean, that's who this is about. So started working on that with the defeat of the mergers in all the towns. I think we had official subcommittees from every town except for Putney, who I think has 2 board members that are attending, but they're not an official subcommittee. So they don't have to warn it, but the minutes have been on everybody's website who's had an official subcommittee. We have tonight about 20 pages to go through of the AGS proposal as it stands. It's due December 26th. So it's not the same as articles in terms of what you have to present, because it's not something that people are going to vote on that's written in stone that will see us forevermore until somebody tries to get out or votes or things, because it's more of a working document and ideas of what you want to do. And since we don't have to change our governance structure under this scenario, no vote has to occur. But I am urging our board that we would have a vote, and I'm suggesting to other boards that it would be a really good opportunity. We have this thing called town meeting to have the opportunity to hear from voters to see if that meets the requirements of the towns and is in line with the vision of the town for their educational future. So at this point, Vernon has voted to approve the AGS as it stands. I believe Guilford has voted to not endorse the AGS. I think Putney had a meeting today. I'm not too clear on where they stand with recommending an AGS or not.
I can talk if you want.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Putney did have a meeting today, and they have completed, it's about a 20 to 30-page report of looking at surveys that they have since the vote sent to their community, getting feedback, putting together a profile of their community, and talking about which portions of the AGS proposal that they feel like would really work for them, and which portions of the original articles of agreement they feel could be tweaked and would work better for them, and that's what they voted to send forth. So it's more an informational letter than a real plan, I would say.
So they're kind of riding the median?
I would guess that's
Okay.
close.
Excellent. We're discussing our AGS tonight as well here, and I think Brattleboro is looking at that tomorrow night. How'd I do?
Not bad.
Okay.
So how does it all get put together? I mean, you said a deadline of the 26th, you got 4 or 5 moving pieces, and you gotta come up with one direction for everybody.
I don't think.
Or not necessarily, I guess, depending
Yeah,
on.
no, because it's down to boards now, it's at a board level. And so it may be that 3 towns want to do the AGS and 2 towns want, I don't, that's in the powers that are much greater than mine, the Board of Education and the Secretary of Education.
But who
So
would facilitate that? I mean, would it be the SU? Would that?
No, just individual boards.
I think it's conversations with the Secretary of Education that will occur over the 6 months while they formulate their statewide final education plan. I think that's kind of what the Act 46 and Act 49 say. So that
It's not clear as clear under the law. In other words, as the methodology to move forward under a proposed or under a preferred model that they had set out. They set out boom, 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 and alternative governance structures were set out somewhat differently, where they don't have the same exact things that you need. And so I think, if I may, that the alternative governance document that's been sent to us and is available to you guys, talks about agreements that would be made amongst and between currently existing boards and the currently existing structure at the SU, and how those further developing those relationships or those partnerships would meet the criteria of Act 46. So that's the idea, that these would meet the criteria of Act 46 as written in the law. But it's not as clear cut as the you need to have this kind of a governance structure or this kind of a governance structure or that kind of a governance structure.
So is it putting together options and then the Department of Ed will make the decision?
Yes.
That's what it is now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
And then I guess I should say that if they say it's illegal, immoral, unethical what we're doing, then they could, they have a statewide education plan and they could force us to merge. There's default articles. I mean, in theory, this is what the law says. They could, if they think that we need to merge, there's a series of set of default articles, which I'm not sure have been written yet. I can't find them anywhere that they would revert to unless a district has 90 days to come up with some alternative articles, which we probably would be able to do. And those articles have to be voted on by the public. So if it went that way, there would be, in theory, another vote.
Is it just a hard copy or is it just online?
There's no copy of the default articles, so.
No, I meant the alternative governance structure.
Oh, I've got it here. It's a light reading, so you're welcome to it, Ray.
That's our task.
It's, so I should have explained that a little bit better. It is a vision that all representatives from all the 5 WSESU towns have worked and collaborated on to create a vision for going forward under Act 46 with our current supervisory union structure and current governance structures.
But not all towns fully support that document.
Exactly.
That's what, yeah.
Not all school boards fully support
Most
that.
boards, yeah.
Because actually groups of citizens can throw in an alternative governance structure if they want. So it's a lot more loose than the study committee preferred model structure.
Christina, what do you think the biggest differences are between this and the merger?
This is a hearing, Molly.
I know, but I kind of thought it was a learning, I didn't realize it was a
Okay.
hearing.
I
I'm
feel like
putting you
I'm
on the
leading
spot.
the witness. So I feel like that it keeps our local governance structures in place
Okay.
in the way it has always been.
Take notes.
It keeps, yeah, sure. And keeps our tax bases the way they are, so that had advantages for Dummerston by merging with Brattleboro, who has a large, much larger populations and a lower tax rate, so that would have brought our tax rate down a bit.
Mhm.
So the decisions that we make here as a town going forward will directly impact our bottom line. But those decisions would be made in an alternative governance structure, be made here.
Mhm.
In order to try to get to increased equity and efficiency, we've talked about structures where we would have representatives from groups work together and really analyze and look at how many bodies does each school district have, do that benchmarking and find the best practices within our SU and see what, we built on this from the study committee process, which is you're sitting down in the room, people are talking about the programs that really work. And that is the best meat of the whole process was, sitting with Beth Bristol, hey, how's that pre-K working out? And John Gagnon came to speak to us about it, and you gotta talk to this person, and I spoke to Mike Mowicki, and he said, hey, we got a grant when we did ours to help us with the ADM. I mean, it's
So
that.
you're saying that was kind of a model for what you could then propose here?
Yes,
In a way,
like-
like more sharing?
Yes, how could the study committee process keep on going?
Okay.
Although it already felt like it did, but how could we actually keep the good parts of the study committee envisioning better work on our part, and sharing of resources, and I think it will also facilitate sharing of teachers when you're starting to think ahead, I've got a teacher retiring, and we need an art teacher, and how do things, how do things look? Is there anybody else? Is there another partner for a part-time position? I'm not, not a classroom teacher, but, specialist teachers.
Okay.
Cindy?
Yeah, I don't have too much to say because I'm on the committee myself, but one of the things that I liked about the whole study process, that what came out of it, was learning about the other schools. And I think that in the process, and doing the AGS now, with some of the people that were on the study committee and our school board members, some of the ideas that are getting passed around are really great. And I think over the years, and I've been involved in school boards or education since the 1970s, over the years, things have gotten away from the local and more on a supervisory and a few people level. And I think to really learn about all the other schools and learn about what they're doing is one of the most important things that came out of this. The other important thing that I think has happened because of the AGS is the fact that Vernon can come back and join us. And I don't think anybody that I know of wanted Vernon to leave. We all wanted Vernon to stay with us, and it was a shame that they weren't allowed to in the merger situation. So I think that's a great thing, and we've had some great conversations with them, and particularly because all 5 of their board members have come to some of our meetings. So those are the things that I think are beneficial from what's happened.
Thank you, Jody.
I think one benefit of the merger was those leadership councils, the idea to somehow incorporate the public in an increased capacity. I mean, you look at the attendance tonight, it's pretty sparse, which is disappointing. So certainly more interaction with the public so that you can get that feedback.
CI.
I
Thank you. Sorry, Rick. Sorry.
It's okay.
We got scholars in the room.
but I thought that was a very positive piece of that merger, a necessary, even if it was just a sounding board.
I think a good AGS proposal should try to incorporate that idea. Thank you for that suggestion.
I think it has.
If I think about what I heard around the town, one of the challenges with the merger was people's feeling of concern about possible future school closings. So that's what I heard the most about on the challenge side of the merger.
And school closing and middle school closing.
And middle school wasn't really, what's the word I want? Wasn't really part of the merger. It wasn't, even though it was asked to make sure that we could keep our middle schools, it really wasn't part of the merger at all, pro or con.
It wasn't really discussed yet.
Yeah, it wasn't discussed.
Yep. I mean, obviously, it's not maybe appropriate to put it under merger challenges because someday we may face school closure or middle school closure for any reason, but I think it's a question of maybe who controls it under a merger versus not. Who's the decision maker, because if we're down to 25 kids, we're probably not gonna have a middle school. K through 8, you know? Hey, Sam.
Did I miss the part where you opened the meeting and gave a little bit of a status report as to where we are in the process?
Would you like a really quick synopsis?
Yes, please.
So, when the merger was voted down,
Yeah.
all the representatives from all the towns have come together to create an AGS.
Right.
That is it's like people call it an enhanced supervisory union. It's no governance change.
Right.
But we suggest structures and contracts to try to duplicate a lot of the benefits of merger.
Right, that's all in here, I can read that, but where are we with is this a proposal that the AGS is is presenting to the school board at this point, or is it still in
Yes.
draft form?
This is what we're
And is there a
presenting.
process by which the school boards would send this to the state?
By December 26th, it goes to the state. It's different than the Articles of Agreement that have to have a vote, and they're set in stone and warned in
Right.
every town. There's a conversation. It's a more laid-back kind of process, although probably
What
not.
is the process? I mean, does it just require a vote from each school board?
It requires a vote from each school, but you, Sam Farwell, can send up your own AGS.
I understand.
So, but in this case, boards are all looking at this AGS and voting to send it up.
Okay, or
But-
not.
Or not. And that has to be in by the 26th of December. There's a period of time through like November of 2018, I think, where there's conversations that will be happening with the Secretary of Education.
Okay.
We can amend, we can go back and
Okay.
forth, we will be.
And each town is operating individually? We're not sending it as a supervisory union, we're sending this proposal from Dummerston?
Right.
It's the
Right.
requirement that
And
each.
Yeah.
each
Each
town-
board,
So,
each board has to
right,
determine their pathway to heaven.
right. So it could be that one or two towns don't send a AGS proposal up.
It appears that Guilford will not be sending the proposal up.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you very much. So are you planning to vote tonight?
We may be voting tonight,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I hope that you do send it up to the state, that's my input. I haven't read it yet, but because there's a chance to continue the discussion for months afterwards, I think that that's a good move.
Thank you, Sam. It would be my hope that we would have lots of public engagement over the next couple months and a vote and town meeting day. However this goes forward, and make sure people are aware of what's going on.
Thank you for putting this together. This is clearly a lot of work.
I needed a hobby.
And I don't think that has all the any of the appendixes to it, do you?
Some of the appendices are in there.
Oh.
Yeah, then,
You've been very good, I haven't got the latest thing.
don't ask for them in electronic form, but photocopy form is good.
I know Sue's done a lot of work on it.
Yes,
so.
Sue's been great with getting data. It's been a really very lovely collaborative experience with, it's really nice to have Vernon back in the fold, absolutely. They have been really participating and really interested in this path forward. It works out quite well for Vernon. We've had a lot of help from a lot of people and a lot of communities getting this done, so it's not just a one-woman show by any means.
I think it's been nice having Mike Hebert as part of it from Vernon too, because he's been talking to the legislators and keeping them informed, our legislators, of what's going on. In fact, they all signed on to an extension request, which I don't know where that's at right now, but they all signed on to it, so they know exactly where we are and what's going on.
This is like a generic document. Is this sort of, is it a specific plan that we would, our town, our board would like to see implemented, or is it just generalities? I mean, do you say, okay, we want, ideally for us, you know, all the outlying towns with Brattleboro, the way it is now, with tweaking it so that it makes the equity meet the state standard. Is that what this document says, or is it more, this is what we, does any other town have exactly this copy that they're gonna submit?
Yes,
They do?
yes.
Okay. So there's some sort of, in the mind of some of you or all of you, what that structure would look like?
So we all collaborated on a structure and on these enhancements to the structure and these contractual ideas. And so everybody who served on the AGS committee, which was an amalgamation of subcommittees, thought that the things in here were good ideas for their community and have brought them back to their boards as one alternative for their particular board going forward. Does that make?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm so down in it, Rick, that sometimes it's hard to like come up for air for, you know, people that haven't been breathing it for 3 months. So it's all the same document that we're looking at, minus a few commas and periods that I find along the way. And so we're voting on the same concept.
So how far off does this veer from the structure that's in place right now? And what are maybe one of the differences?
So it adds leadership councils. It adds a school board member who is serving on a leadership council to be on something called an opportunity and equity committee, to meet at the SU level to work with other districts to find efficiencies. Every school would have a representative who would be serving on a leadership council and on this opportunity and equity committee. And so it's actually, as it turns out, you know, you never think of a novel idea, because Don McLean from Guilford came to one of the meetings, and board chairs used to all go out once a month and share ideas for opportunity and equity back in the Paleolithic period or something, as he would say. No, that's what he said, I'm quoting him. And it just fell out of use. But they found that that's how they started doing a lot, you know, sharing a lot of resources. So it's like we reinvented the wheel at the AGS level, because it's really the conversations that improve. And I think our supervisory union does a really good job of that, but from a governance standpoint, we don't. And so, you know, we budget in a vacuum, we talk, you know, you get together at the SU level, you're dealing with those things. But how can we create a culture with more discussion, more sharing, more thinking about how to get all of our kids at a similar level with similar opportunities when they hit our union high school, which we all share. And I think I said that early on in the meeting, like, no, they all are our kids, because if they have to start over again with a whole school that is lagging behind, it's costing us money. And it's much harder to fix the problem in 9th grade than it is to fix the problem in 1st grade. So that was an interesting dynamic changer in thinking about it, that we all, and in there we've also suggested maybe some sort of SU assessment kind of change to help move money around. For example, one of the examples, Dummerston's not asking for this money, so I know we're talking about a pre-K, but the startup costs for pre-K are really high. And you don't get your ADM coming up, which is how everything's determined, until later. And so maybe there would be some funds given to a town their first year of a pre-K program just to get it going, and done through SU assessments. That, we have a lot of work to do on that. It is a suggestion. We're just an AGS committee. We have no power. It's an opportunity and equity committee that would make recommendations to a supervisory union. I'm talking way too much for a hearing.
No, we're asking questions.
Okay.
You're the ones who have to talk.
Well, I think you were talking about the transfer, and I think we've changed the name on that, but between the schools. But we also found out that that's not a novel idea either, because Two Rivers has been doing it for probably 3 to 4 years.
You're talking about shared staffing?
No,
An enrollment
no, we're
place
talking
for the-
about, if Molly had a youngster and Molly didn't live in Brattleboro, didn't live in Dummerston, she lived in Brattleboro and wanted her child to come here to school, that kind of thing, or if a child was being bullied, they could move to somewhere else if it was better for them, or even educationally, if something was better for them. Or if a family left Dummerston, the child may,
Could stay at
possibly
Dummerston.
stay in the school, and there's ways of doing that can benefit both the districts
Right. And
coming and going.
is there any language in this proposal that addresses that?
Yes, it
That-
is.
So does that,
That's about 3/4 of the way through that proposal, right?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I mean, is it recommending some kind of structural or legal change that would make
So
more things possible?
Two Rivers does it through contracts,
Okay.
where the resident town holds on to the ADM, and then half of the money travels with the student to the sending town. It's only done if there's space. That was the school transfer that was going to be in the merger had limitations on it as well, with the incoming and outgoing.
Yeah.
And so our example in there is pulling from the Two Rivers concept, which,
Okay.
like, I lay awake nights trying to think of how this could how could we make this work? What,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, would this be right? And then talking to Jody at a meeting, she's like, oh, they're already doing that in Two Rivers. I'm like, oh, great, I should have asked you before I even started thinking about it. But I actually came to the same numbers in my own head, that 50% is a good number. I think there's a really big advantage that in terms of, because people are like, oh, where's the money going, and kids
Right.
leaving and everything, but I think we need to remember that we have many children in our district who are leaving for private school.
I
And
was
if
going to bring that point up.
if things don't work out for them, they may have chosen, it's actually, if a school isn't working out for your child, you have many choices, but private school tends to be the choice versus having to pay full tuition to, send them to 7th grade in Putney or something.
Right.
So if that were an opportunity for a family, I think we would have a better opportunity of keeping those children in our system. And likewise with teachers' children, when they move districts, we would capture that ADM. So I think Two Rivers, which is a much smaller district than ours, I think that they estimated to be a $60,000 a year savings in their, I read through their minutes, and so they said it was gonna be about $60,000 ADM savings, basically, because you guys understand how the game works, so.
Right.
Just in capturing the ADM with the child of a teacher within their districts that were already moving. So there are some opportunities to be more efficient financially, and it's good for kids.
I'm gonna go back to your thing about kids not coming here. And we have done the research, and the schools in our AGS are all doing the research. Pre-K through 8th grade in Dummerston, we're losing 25 kids.
How did you, I'm sorry, 25 per,
25 kids.
Total.
This year.
Overall.
This year.
Okay.
are gone.
How did
Between
you do that research?
homeschooling and private school. Putney has over 40, I've forgotten exactly the number,
Yep.
but Putney has over 40 kids that
Yep.
are going. And a lot more are homeschooled than Putney.
yeah.
And Brattleboro had, I think I had the figures for all of them, and Brattleboro had like 25 kids were homeschooled. Brattleboro, I can't remember how many kids were going to private school from there.
When I
It's a
was
big
writing.
number.
Yeah, when I was writing the education chapter in the town plan, I would have loved to have that data, because I thought it would be
Oh.
very interesting to demographic data for our town, to know sort of how many,
Well,
you know.
the town plan's not finished yet, we're gonna have to do it before the select board pays it.
but I didn't know where to get that information.
You
That
call
seemed
the
like that was
schools.
not public.
You call the schools, they'll tell you. call
The
it.
private schools.
We call it private
Oh,
schools.
the private schools. Ah,
We would
yeah,
get
because
those
But
And
the
then,
state-
and
we only
then
know the school
the
kids that are
homeschoolers, the central office has the homeschoolers, so.
Okay.
You might be missing some.
You might be
There's
missing
little
some.
schools like Western
But we have at
Mass
least
schools.
25 that are
And
not
that's
at
not counting the
Dummerston
high,
School.
that's not counting high school, private schools.
And yeah, it's not counting high
Right.
school.
Just K-8.
Right.
I have 27 between grammar school, Hilltop, St. Michael's neighborhood, and homeschool for Dummerston this year.
Yeah.
It's 27.
You've
And
got
then,
two more than I have.
and then I don't have, I estimate, because Travis goes to Putney, about 30 to 31 kids, just by phone numbers on the student list that are our district, just by phone number,
For high school.
high school.
Yeah.
And that's not Vermont Academy or NMH.
But what would be really interesting would be to see if there's any trend in those numbers, if that has been going up or down, or
Yeah.
pretty much been the same since 1950. It would be very interesting.
I don't think that many kids did go to private schools back in that.
Well,
period of
everybody
time.
thinks the good old days were good old days, but, you know, who knows? The numbers don't lie, unless they're wrong.
Unless they're
Unless they do.
alternative.
But it's very interesting, and that's one of the reasons that I've been pushing for a pre-K in Dummerston, because if you can get the kids in pre-K, you're apt to be able to keep them in their school and
Which
not
is-
lose them to the other schools.
Which was the exact philosophy of the private school I was working at.
Well, I did just talk to the lovely people at the school that you were at. They were very nice, but she also said that what was our process now for the pre-K, and I told her pretty much where we were at, and she thought it was a very good idea for us to have pre-K. So, and I said, well, it's probably gonna take away from you, and she says, it's still a good idea, so. See if we can do it.
I hear you, Jody.
Hmm?
I hear you, Jody.
Yeah, you can hear me.
So
Came up
it-
with Y2K in 2000, so that's a while ago.
Yeah, I know.
I would be interested to hear from various board members the differences between the possibilities for the shared staffing, I guess is the term, for teachers working at two different schools. And what are the differences between this AGS proposal and the merger proposal? How, is one way more complicated? Or are we basically offering the same possibilities in different ways? I know that was definitely a talking point for the study committee merger proposal.
So we have listed in there that, and the statutes kind of urge you to look at shared personnel systems. Frank Rucker set up an agency fund over in Wyndham Central, so there are ideas that could be investigated, figured out if they're legal, to try to make it one taxpayer ID for these shared teachers. It is definitely not as easy, and that has pluses and minuses. It's much easier to move teachers around if it's a super board,
One employer.
one employer for sure. But then how does it work on the ground in the school if there's a cultural difference? How does all that hiring versus where it's very clear that the board and the principal are hiring positions? So, in reality, how that shakes out, who knows? In a merged system, it may be not an issue at all. I want to say that as well, but it's very clear in our current system, if you're sharing a teacher, how that happens.
So there's really no way around, other than this possibility for some sort of other taxpayer ID. There's no way around having getting two different paychecks. from
The SU could be, the
employers.
SU could potentially be the sole employer of all the teachers.
Or the special teacher.
And that's what they do in Wyndham Central. It's a taxpayer ID at the SU level.
Mhm.
And then they allocate out the usage of so the employer is hired at that level
Mhm.
with their benefits, and then if somebody has them 2 days of the week, they pay for 40% of that person's
Mhm.
total expense.
Is that what they do now?
That's what they've been doing at Wyndham Central. Frank set it up for several years
So they've been a merged employer.
for their shared staff, yes.
Oh, not for all their staff?
Not for all their staff.
Huh. Okay.
So if you're a shared staff, if you're Mary Bandish,
Yeah.
you're an employee, your paycheck comes from the SU taxpayer ID and you get one check under the Wyndham Central situation, whereas now she gets two checks.
Yeah.
Gee, I'd rather get 2 jobs.
Good job.
Depending on-
What is your vision for the future AGS board, the way it stands right now? Would it stay the same?
I'm sorry.
You mean the Dummerston School Board?
Yeah, the Dummerston School Board, in this document, would it change?
I don't envision it particularly changing except for the tired faces that might move along over time. But speaking of myself only, everybody else expresses Daisy. But
There
I
would
don't
be-
think.
The board member would be on the possibility of this local school council, but that would not be an additional board member to the board?
No, it would be
Okay.
the same, it would be a board member. When we first talked about it, conceptually, everybody's like, oh, more meetings. And then as we talked about it as a group, it was like, who would not want to do this? There was like palpable excitement in the room. Who wouldn't want to do this? Because who gets on a board to sign the warrants, look at well, I like the budget, but really, who doesn't want to collaborate and try to find other ways to do things and work with the principal and work with the staff to try to do things better? And there was actually excitement from people like, I would definitely do one. I would definitely serve on that. And who wouldn't want to meet, monthly or, every other month with a teacher and the principal and a few parents to really think about the school and think about how to improve the school. That is really an enticing opportunity to volunteer, to me anyway, and it appealed to a lot of the people in the room. We're getting to, wow, we filled up our time. And I got stuff written on the board, which I feel as a former teacher is really important.
Well, I'll just reiterate my 2 cents, which is that I hope that the board votes to send this to the state. And if you do, I'm looking forward to the process going forward.
Thank you, Sam.
And thank you to the AGS committee for all the hard work. And thank you to the study committee for all the hard work.
Here, here.
It's been a long 2+ years.
Yes, we stole a lot of ideas from ourselves.
Yeah.
Any other last questions, thoughts, comments?
Good luck with your decision.
Sorry?
Good luck with your decision.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Does Max have a ride home? Doesn't.
Oh, you could, thank you, Ms. Stoner. You could check.
Are we gonna conclude the forum?
Yes, I'm going to conclude this
Okay.
part of the forum. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay.
If you're leaving home with it.
Does everybody have a copy?
I need a copy. I need these.
Can you put it on the printer? There's a couple copies on the printer in the library. Okay. Would you mind
Take a 5-minute break.
Sorry? Yes. We're going to take a 5-minute break so we can reconfigure. Our regularly
6:36.
scheduled 6:30 meeting at 6:36. Are there any changes to the agenda? Do you want to add a possible action onto the Act 46 governance update?
Where do you want to put that?
On, under old business B, just a possible action on voting on the
Okay.
AGS structure?
Yeah. Perfect.
Hello, visitors.
Hello.
You look vaguely familiar. Any particular item you are interested in discussing tonight or hearing about?
Thank you.
Old business.
Old business, okay. Moving on to the clerk's report.
I move that we approve the minutes of November 28th.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Any communications?
Wow.
Oh, I have a communication today from Chris Leopold, which really I just got as I was walking out the door, regarding conflict of interest, advising us on any Act 46 stuff. I had reached out to him as a possibility since he's quite familiar with the WSSU as a way to get things done economically, but I just had a chance to skim it as I was going out the door, so I will forward that to people later today.
I thought didn't we have a lawyer?
Yes, we do have a lawyer, and I would use him definitely, but I thought, well, since Chris Leopold has done all this AGS stuff, that it might make sense, so I reached out to him as a possibility. But if he's unable to do it, I will use the other attorney. So I was just checking out my options.
And what's the other attorney's name?
Paul Gillies,
Okay.
I
yeah.
think is how you pronounce it,
Yep.
former Assistant Secretary of State. Any other communications? Excellent. Moving right along. Administrative report.
A lot to report. It seems like we just did parent conferences, and now it's starting for the new year. We had a great holiday program, standing room only, once again. And just putting the final preparation on winter activities, hoping to get that off the ground and report to you right after the first of the year on the costs and some of the changes that we'd like to propose to winter activities for next year. That's about it. Our basketball teams look pretty good, pretty impressive.
A lot of athletes as well, a lot of them.
A lot of them, yes, that's good.
It's almost
right?
2 teams worth of the boys, really, could easily have been. So yes, it's really in these,
Yeah.
there may be declining enrollment, but there isn't in our athletic programs, and that's really wonderful. How is PTFO going while you're here?
PTFO is resurrected and moving and active. They've done some incredible fundraising. That money's coming in nicely. Redemption Center gave us a check last month for $500 and something as one of the top redeemers or whatever it is that you get for taking in the most bottles. So we gave a bonus of $100 on that, so that's happening.
Thank you.
The pie sale was over $600, and some of that was made just with people who hadn't ordered pies, but they happened to make some extra ones. Yeah, what else? I mean, it's just, the apparel sale is nice, but it's not a huge moneymaker. We had the vendor event, that did well, and they're just gonna keep coming. They're gonna, I think, resurrect one of the cookbooks that Dummerston used to be famous for their recipes. Look for a calendar. And there's a couple of sort of traditional things coming along that may not go over so well with our wellness committee, but tend to make some money.
Been there, discussed that, yes. I got your back on that. I'm like the bake sale advocate suddenly. And so my recollection is that some of that money was going to support winter activities funding, and so is that revenue stream happening the way it was expected to?
Yes, I mean, some of the money is earmarked for winter activities. Some of it has been earmarked for the playground improvements. And I actually can't tell you where we are in terms of payments coming in at this point, but I'm assuming that they will be the same as they have been in the past. I think our transportation costs will be a little less this year. Since Lori Tebow can drive a number of kids anywhere. It's really worked to our advantage.
I know somebody else with a van too, we should talk. Well, I know how much work things like the pie sale are. I know Ruth Barton made all the pie crusts, and so I just really want to say a big thank you to all the PTFO people who really helped support that, because it's.
Yes, and there's a number of people I have to thank.
And for Lori Tebow, who showed up at our door to get our cans right after we had already sought redemption, so.
Yeah, the church opened their doors, and all the pie makers came and just worked.
They
I mean,
did?
it was, yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
That's really.
And it wasn't all that long after the Apple Pie Festival that they were,
Yeah, swing of things.
That's oh, thank you.
yes.
Anything else to add?
Probably, but I can't think of anything right now.
Middle school dance.
Oh, we had a
yes.
middle school dance on Friday night. And it was an exceptional dance. It was also the longest 2.5 hours week, but it was great. Kids really outdid themselves this time with 8th graders had staff shirts on that were highlighted with
Black light
black
paint.
lighting.
Yes.
They ran their jobs. They had a couple of additional money makers like face painting. Some high school kids came back, got credit for community service, did face painting, which was great. And there was no like freaky show kind of face painting, which was pretty good. But they were standing in line just paying $1 to have their face painted. It's like, that goes over all right with parents, but it seemed to. That was a big money maker. The snack bar was great. It's good. And this is how important Dummerston's dances are. Is, Putney had a concert that night.
Oh.
They got a bus and bused the kids here
Yeah.
at 8:30 for an hour left of the dance.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, but
That's great.
yeah.
Well, your administrative report is filled with the good tidings
Good,
of the
yes.
season and
Yes.
the community spirit that I love about this town,
Yeah.
so we all love about this town. And anything on the,
Okay, she should have gone first. You probably all heard from the VSBA. They are urging all boards to take WSESU.org email addresses. Partly if for any reason you had to ever be subpoenaed any of your emails and it's in your personal email, that would have to go as well. It would keep us all consistent, everyone in the SU. So I'm asking each board just to put it on a future agenda. You have time to talk about it.
Okay.
And then if you decide that that's what you'd like to do, Gary Parzyk, our tech coordinator, will set you each up with a WSESU.org email address.
and can it dump into a regular?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Phew. Okay.
Yep. I was able to go to the Governor's Education Summit yesterday. It was in Norwich, in the Armory. And it was interesting. I was glad that I went. It was people from across the state, from everyone from superintendents to principals to special ed directors to many school board members. The only disappointing thing is there were no legislators from our region at all, and there were legislators from other regions. So when we're talking about ed funding and changes, then it was
What were they called again? I'm sorry.
sure, the
Governor's
Governor's
Education
Education
Summit.
Summit. So it was a chance
Thank
to
you.
hear what other areas are doing around sort of some funding questions, and then give feedback to things like the 5-to-1 ratio, things like that. So it was a good opportunity.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Jody.
Yeah, with the emails all being Wyndham Southeast Supervisor Union, how private is that?
Very private, because it's also school kids, so
It's also what?
it's all, our school kids are also on it, so it's.
Oh, your school kids
yeah.
are also on it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but can you read Christina's email
Never.
or can a kid's
Nope.
email or anything like that?
No.
Okay, just curious.
The tech coordinator I suppose could go in. I had to have him go in and shut off an email. I don't know if he could read them or not, but yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think it would be wise to assume, because anything is FOIA requestable to a public servant, that one should be thoughtful about what one writes.
Put on that, yeah.
Just assume that whoever is writing, you're writing about would be reading it, would be good advice. That's it. Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to the finances. I don't have the warrants. Would entertain, oh wait,
I
thank
move
you.
that we approve the warrants as listed for a total of $98,811.42.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I seem to have it.
Who seconded?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I just moved things. We are up to the budget presentation.
Great, so I do apologize, you guys are the guinea pigs, I've never done this before, so good luck to me. So I can talk to you first about the top page, which is the revenues.
Mhm.
Do you want this? I think there's extra copies right in front of my head.
There's a lot right here.
Thank you.
So you can see, I'm going to be looking down the FY19 proposed. The first is the tuition revenue, which is down substantially. Frank did leave in the 6,000. He said that possibly Joe Carroll may know of other students moving in or moving out, but the people that were here have moved into high school, and so that is not a revenue for us anymore. The next substantial change, however, is in the Medicaid subgrant. It was, last year, we adopted 18,000. The proposed for this year for revenue is 37,000. We have a new person that's working on Medicaid. She is a dynamo. We've been able to increase that quite a bit.
Excellent. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, the budget's right there.
Thanks.
The Title IIA subgrant, Title IIA is no longer eligible to support a teaching position, so that has basically gone away. And you will see later on in the budget where there's an increase, we put that person's position into a regular elementary position.
Are we still getting Title IIA funding? And
Approximately 1,500 for
But is the-
professional development. The SU is.
so is it, so has the, what it can fund changed?
Yes.
So what can it, just as a.
Professional development.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay.
And we assume that, listening to the federal news, we assume that's going away.
I think that's a good assumption.
Yeah. The next, let's see, 28,000 general state support grant. Oh, the small schools grant is next. Frank put that in as the same. He has not heard much about that at all, so he just assumed that it would be about the same. So going down, total expenditures is $3,025,496. He is suggesting that you may want to use 20,000 of your surplus, which would get it to $3,005,496. And we can talk some more about that. So that's sort of the revenue piece. The next one, I'm going to count on Christina to help me with this.
Oh, boy.
So, if you look at the top line 1, budget, that's the $3,025,000 for total budget. Minus the revenues, offsetting revenues, which is line 10, $192,857, giving you a total of $2,832,639. The next line is your equalized pupils, 152.95, so 153 approximately, which would give you educational spending per pupil as $18,520. This will put you $704 above the cap, so that actually, when we're figuring out the equalized tax rate, it would be actually $19,224.
Those are different numbers than what I'm
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah, you've got some, that's what I was going to ask about,
Okay.
because the revenue was different,
Line
wasn't it?
26 is supposed to be 835 according to this.
So that's very interesting. Oh,
And what did
He
you
doesn't
have for
tell you what the
revenue?
cap
And the rest,
threshold
that
is
was
there.
192, and I show 172.
No, he does.
I got 172 for revenue.
She said 192, I
I
think.
know.
So he's got a different number here.
He has different numbers in your copy than mine.
too. Do you want one of our copies?
What a way to set me up
Yeah,
on my
isn't it?
first time doing this.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Here's our copy. You want one?
That's not fair,
That is
Lyle.
really not fair.
Oh, man.
Oh, don't you think
now
I'm
you
not
don't
I
gonna
like
do
your
it?
numbers better. Yeah, just so you know why. We're going with you.
All right. Okay, so,
The revenue was different.
the revenue, you're right, the revenue is actually quite a bit different from what he could take with me this afternoon. So, as you can see, this is ever changing because the numbers from the state are always
Changing,
updated.
yeah.
Right, so
I
the
was
revenue
getting
was-
lost.
Right, it wasn't your fault, so, 172,857. But the equalized pupils is the same, approximately 153. Which actually is bad because it puts you at $835 over the cap. And 19,486. The next two sections, 69% of Dummerston, or 70% of Dummerston students go here. So that's that next section where it talks about the common level of appraisal, which I will let Christina talk about. And then the bottom box section, about 30% of Dummerston students. And that's not 30% of the students at the high school, but 30% of the students in Dummerston go to the high school, and those are their numbers.
Oh, is that all?
30% of Dummerston students go to the high
That's the
school.
population.
Right.
So you
Of
have,
all-
say, 100 Dummerston students, kindergarten to 12th grade.
Right.
30% of them go to the high school.
Oh, not 30% of our high school kids.
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
all right.
No, no.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'll let you talk about common level appraisal because that's in like second round of Frank's talk to me.
So that is annually, they compare the housing sales compared to the appraisal value. So right now, if your CLA is at 106%, it means that when the houses that have sold for less than what they're appraised at by a certain percentage. And so it actually works in our favor to bring down our tax rate. If you can, it's not happy for you if you're trying to sell your house, but it's happy for you if you're staying here and paying taxes on that. So that brings, if you take that $377 on line 31, and you divide that by the common level of appraisal, which is done statewide, then you come out to the $1.29.
And have we gotten the official CLA for, should be coming soon if you haven't gotten it already.
Probably not in here, because it's the same
Yeah, it's the same
number.
as last year, so
Okay.
he's estimating. Yeah.
And the BUHS rate's gone up 10 cents?
We got news
9 cents.
yesterday that they're down 200 students. So we're doing some checking into those numbers because it does not seem right.
Oh, the
Equalized.
pupil number from the state. You're
Yeah.
not actually down
No,
200
no,
funds?
no, no, no.
Oh,
The equalized
okay.
pupil number is down 200 students, and it just
That's huge.
That's
Yeah.
huge. It does not.
You would
seem-
notice that.
Exactly. So, excuse me. Working on that assumption, things are probably going to definitely change at the high school.
Okay, that makes a big difference,
Yes.
because I think the high school budget's level roughly this year.
We were up slightly, but certainly
Yeah.
not like that.
Yeah, so that's
And the
like-
high school itself, BAMS was up a little bit, and the career center, but the high school was definitely.
Sam, did you have a question on this?
I'm just curious, to hear from the state what the final state tax rate is until
Yeah.
February, end of February?
It's very difficult, yeah.
So Frank's just
Sometimes
going on
it's-
last year's rate? or-
Yep.
What-
What he's hearing, you
What is-
know, yeah.
Is it somewhere on here, the state tax rate?
I
Well,
don't know.
it's the base, it's
The base-
Yeah, it's the base rate.
the base
I forget
yield.
which line it is.
Can't find it.
It's under 28 in very tiny font.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Where? Line 28?
Under line
Under-
28,
based on-
under the
Based on-
197.984%, you go down and you see the
Yeah.
base yield. So. But, you know, and the threshold kind of goes into that as well.
In some instances, when we've been doing the budget, the base rate hasn't been established until after
Mhm.
town meeting.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
It
But I'm
is-
just curious what he's
Can be a
going-
moving target.
Oh, so he's going on non-residential 155, and what's the residential number he's going on?
What are you asking about?
The base tax rate. He's using something. Is he just using, I'm wondering what it is. And down here I see a non-residential tax rate of 155.
Up at
That's
the
it.
very top, Sam, they have the homestead tax rate per 9,842, a spending per equalized pupil.
The tippy top
At the
up
very
here.
Very, very top.
Oh.
9,842.
Yeah.
Oh. I think that the non-residential
See how
rate
that
is-
equals 1.00?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Right, gotcha. Right, okay.
But it was
Right,
like
it's a different
98
calculation than
cents or something
non-residential,
last
okay.
year, so I don't know if that includes the increase.
I think they've reset it by law to $1 now, though, that it's
Yeah.
always gonna be $1.
$1
I
is
think
what-
starting this past, yeah. Well, because they had so many moving targets that I think they just, I don't think I made that up.
So what's gonna change is the per equalized pupil number?
That will change every year.
Yep.
So now, so that makes it easier to hide, I mean, instead of talking about the rate going up 7 cents, it's something harder to understand. Okay.
This has not been
The
designed.
box
to
at
be
the bottom is
user-friendly.
very instructive as well. I don't quite understand it 100%.
I'll read that.
but-
But I think also that a takeaway from this is there's 9 cents based on the high school numbers, which are a little
Yeah.
funky, that makes a big difference on the tax rate, so. Well, not a full, so it doesn't translate to be a full 9 cents at the bottom line, I guess. But anyway, be that as it may. Thank you, Lyle.
So,
Additional ones. Come on, my gosh.
these,
Yes.
that are wrong.
You mean right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, I'm not sure if you wanted to go through anything specific. There are a couple of things, like we had talked about a little bit, moving that Title IIA into an elementary salary.
Right.
I think highlights would be nice, I don't know about you guys.
And the budget's down. So I just, many of the cuts that we made last year are still present and in this current budget. With the exception of, on page 2, you see program improvement is being budgeted at probably more closely to what we spend, or will spend this year in it. And, you know, we finally caught up with the fact that we need to figure out where virtual high school class payments come from. It comes from program improvement. Some of the technology that we have purchased now comes from program improvement. But it continues to fund the same, ELF, things that happen with asset, the CPR, first aid training, all come out of program improvement. And then, the other thing I wanted to call your attention to that was significant was on page 5. For some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but under the building maintenance contracted service, Frank put in the, I don't know if it adds up to what those 2 additional warnings were on last year's town meeting. for-
60,000.
So that's there, and I told him to leave it there and see how things shake out. Because what isn't included in here is, or what we haven't talked about in a long while, is a capital plan and things that, in addition to what we budgeted for last year and that will be done, the cafeteria tables, there's some things that just need to be looked at and made some decisions about.
The capital plan works against us as far as
Right,
putting us
so-
over the penalty, but yet people are always encouraging you to do a capital plan, which is
Right.
great. I mean, it's just, okay,
Right.
they're still that way, all right.
It's
Yes,
good
it is.
budgeting, but it works terribly against us.
Thank you.
Do you have a sort of cost estimate on what you think, or are you working on a cost estimate for tables and things, and what we might consider
Yes.
doing our duty to keep things in good condition?
Yes, I have that.
Okay, great.
I don't have it.
We don't
Right
just,
here. Okay.
this is the first pass. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's the arsenic absorption thing and then the
That's
fire,
okay.
that kind of stuff that we just,
That would be part of the 90,000?
well, I was thinking, yes, possibly it would be part of the 90,000.
And Frank suggested actually that Joe Carroll could look at what might be the most vulnerable areas that we would want to.
Right.
And we may not keep 60,000 here, we might, after she has some prices where that might be, we could change that.
The elementary salary is up
Where are you?
on page 6 now. Which is assuming that portion of the Title IIA back into just the salary.
So that second line, academic support salary, that down $50,000 is going up into that 76, and then the rest we could assume is just contractual step increases in elementary.
Yes.
Great.
And eventually, all the 651s will move away, so next year it'll be over, and then 2 years it'll be gone.
Okay. The health is very hard to follow.
So the health insurance, it went down 30%, up 20%, so there is still some savings. One of the things that is new is the HRA, Health Reimbursement Account. We have no way of knowing how much of that will be used, so we're budgeting as if all teachers would use all of it until we get a few years so that we can see what percentage are we generally using the HRA. And remember, the HRA reverts back and that is not used by.
Right.
Reverts back to the
town.
the town, not to the
Yeah.
individuals.
Not to the individuals,
Right,
not to, no.
There's another, well, it's not actually.
Lila, you had a comment, maybe I'm skipping ahead on the food service operations.
So if you look back on the very first page, there's a food fund that has $10,789 in it Frank thinks that you don't need to carry that much, and in fact, if you wanted to use that to offset some, that would bring the food service operations portion, food services down to approximately 4,000. That would be a place that you could use some of that surplus.
On page 9, there's another program improvement account. This one is primarily catching up with stipends that are paid to teachers that assume leadership roles, who serve on the leadership team, for student council advisors, for asset coordinators, for just different things that have historically had a category and a funding mechanism in the other districts, but because Dummerston's parish, for example, weren't in that, we didn't have that. So we've sort of been trying to catch up to what some of the big schools get paid their teachers that do the same work that our teachers do. And we're not there yet, but I still want to make sure that there's some money in there so that they get recognized for that work.
Guidance line item, ending line item, this is health insurance maybe is the issue, on page 1, bottom.
Those are changing things.
Because I don't see like the negatives that I see with all the other health insurances, so
Those
it's
are complete changes.
just.
So I think that has to do with, that was formerly a split cost, which is no longer split.
So it's just a lot to take
Wow,
on that.
yeah.
When we increased it,
Oh, wait a minute.
we increased our budget 25% last year, and now we're talking about a 30% increase on that, on the guidance line item. It's a lot. So it's something that we really have to think about, I think.
What page are you on?
Sorry, page 1, the very bottom. Guidance in fiscal year 17 was, we
Yep.
budgeted 62, it was up to 82. The decision was made to make that full-time, so then we budgeted it that way, but now it's up another 30%, so 29.6%.
Boy, health insurance is very expensive for people, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, personally, I would advocate for keeping a full-time guidance counselor in lieu of other support staff, emotional, behavioral staff that we don't have.
That we don't have.
Yeah.
Can't cut
So-
those if we don't have them.
So,
I don't think we're at the point of making those decisions now. I'm just expressing a concern that we really were very stressed as a board, I think, thinking about increasing that level. And now, when we see the budget doing what it's doing, increasing it again is a lot to think about. So I'm just putting it out there to think about.
And it's not helped by the fact that they weren't paying anything, we weren't paying anything towards the health insurance.
right.
It helped cushion that increase, let's say, that we made as a decision to do that.
But when you look back to when it was part-time, and we were paying, it still was high.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I wanna-
I guess I just question whether or not we'd be talking about this if the health insurance hadn't changed. You know, that's something that we offer as an employer. So the overall salary didn't increase significantly, nor did any of the other line items. So, you know, it's our obligation as an employer to, for the contract, to provide that. So I don't know. I'd be more interested in at a future meeting, just talking about the demands on that position versus cutting it, because the party chose to opt for health insurance, so.
I agree with you in principle on this. I just know it was a hard jump last year, and we were in a tax advantage position last year to do full-time, so I'm pointing it out.
In FY17, was it, what percentage? Was it,
Healthcare department?
no, the employee was 0.8%?
No, it was 0.6.
Okay. Okay.
And it had,
It was 3 days a week, right? And
it
now
was
we're
3 days a
five.
week, and we had gone through
Yeah.
several counselors
Okay.
in part-time positions.
Where is our, district-wide? So we're down almost 7% from the previous year. So. And do you attribute that to any particular cost savings or reductions that are uncomfortable? This is page 11.
Yeah, I was actually surprised with it, keeping that building maintenance contracted services in there, not as a separate warning, that it was still down 7%. If there was, we're, I think, done with paying any buyout from retirements, then that could account for it also
Oh,
being down.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
I had one, fuel oil in 2017 was 21,
What page are you on?
sorry, page 5. Operation and maintenance of plant services, which is near the bottom header there, if you go up 2 line items. In FY17, our fuel oil was 21.8. Fuel oil is still running pretty low. I'm wondering if that's another opportunity.
Well, that goes out to bid.
Yeah,
for the
that was
union,
probably
for
what they
the
purchased
supervisor.
it at last
Yeah.
year for this year, and,
Yeah.
Is it purchased district-wide?
Yes.
yeah,
Good idea.
We find out in March usually.
Oh, so we don't really know what this, so he just put in, so I see he put in last year's
It's based
number.
on a certain number of gallons. I
Right,
think it was
right.
like 2,000 gallons or something. I'd have to look at old notes to,
And it goes out to bid to several companies?
yes.
Yes, and I think the 35.5 is definite. That's what we got the bid on last year.
For last year.
Yeah.
So he just kept that number
Yeah.
the same, I see.
And I think it's for like 14,000 gallons.
Yeah, 2,000 was too
I was
few.
gonna say, wow, we're really
Wear your
good.
sweaters, children.
2,000 got us through December.
I'd be curious as to what you were paying per gallon.
I can tell, I think it's like $2.11. The year before, it may have been $1.95 or something.
Because I know you buy so much. I know if you get, the more you buy, you should get the better deals.
Yes, it is.
So
It
did
has
our
been at
babysitter
a.
go?
No, those are mine.
Oh, those are yours, too bad our babysitter left.
Yeah, it's usually at a significantly lower rate based on the volume of the purchase.
It should be.
So,
And I know this year, when we were dealing personally, by going from one to another, we got a much better deal, so.
Did you?
But I think we're buying it SU-wide and they're
Yeah.
putting
Yes,
it out
we
to
are.
bid, so I think we're getting the
Yeah.
best deal we can probably get.
yeah.
Which also, on another note from history, makes it so much easier having Alliance running the whole HVAC system, because you used to have to go with maintenance and support from wherever you got your oil from.
Yeah.
So one year it would be Discount Oil, they would do what they thought, next year it would be barrows, and they would come and send their people. Bypassing all of that, and one firm with both engineering and maintenance has been a godsend.
Be curious if we're getting any benefit in terms of fuel savings, about what they would expect with the investment we made with the efficiencies, if there's any way you could, because they suspected there would be some savings. I know you have to go with, heating degree
Yeah,
days or
yeah.
something to make that calculation, but if they have any ability to do that, that'd be interesting. Have buildings and grounds.
We certainly have saved in terms of contracted maintenance service.
Great.
But fuel efficiency, I'm not sure.
What about your electrical?
That's
Yeah,
right,
there would be a
that's-
flex.
You're
yeah.
bought into this,
Yeah.
thing down at the dump?
I don't know if that comes into play yet. Is it?
Yes, Lyle, can you update us on that off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say the Wyndham Solid Waste project is on track to produce electricity next fall.
Great.
There may be small savings in fiscal year 19, but the 20% savings won't occur until fiscal year 20.
Okay, thank you, Lyle.
Welcome.
We were all ready.
Wasn't I? I might have had the wrong numbers. but-
That wasn't your fault.
That's right.
I see Frank tomorrow
Okay.
morning, right?
Any other initial budget? There's more to come, people, so don't worry that this is your last time to ask budget questions.
May I ask another question?
Yes, we have a lot to do.
I know we do. Did the teachers get at all involved in budgeting? I mean, how does it work from the ground up?
There's a process where teachers, they get forms, they fill out, they projects and personnel that they project and different things. We put it together and it gets submitted to Frank or to Jim. In the past 2 years, it hasn't made any sense to do, looking, it's been more in terms of triage and holding on to what we have versus doing anything different. The one thing that we have done differently is really try to beef up our science materials and text for the middle school, which needed significant support. But other than that, it's the same thing. Tech support, computers.
I just wondered, because having teachers involved, they buy into the program, that they have ownership of what's going on here too. And sometimes teachers get left out, and I just was curious.
Right. But in terms of budgeting and putting in for things, they don't get really out of that process. It's just, they know that it's not kind of futile. Next few years to,
Unfortunately.
I know.
Thank you.
So on page 1, under technology, is the $7,500, is that for like Chromebooks?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you had asked Frank, I thought, to do the budget both with pre-K and without.
I did. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
And can I ask a question? Lyle, did Frank give you any indication if we're $835 over the cap, how much of a reduction in the overall budget it would take?
So when I met with Frank this afternoon, it was $700 over the cap.
Okay.
So, we were thinking that we would need to be cutting, approximately 107,000
Okay.
to get down. However, of course, that's going to be more
All
now.
that's going, and it's all gonna change. Because the numbers aren't the numbers.
Thank you.
But if your budget is down.
Per pupil
and
cost.
And you're only supposed to be.
Per pupil cost.
You're only allowed to do the 2%.
So, we're moving on.
I know, I was just thinking, that doesn't
Okay.
make sense from the state.
Let's see. So I'm going to suggest that we move the pre-K discussion, if that's okay with everybody, so we can do the Act 46 portion, because we're moving well beyond the time at which everybody's chosen. Thank you for coming, Rick.
Thank you.
So I assume everybody got hot off the presses the recent AGS. I attached some of the appendix information on the back. Though it's not
Just-
anywhere near done.
Can I just give a little feedback?
Sure.
So, just in general, when you send documents like this, the email that was sent out, it was not obvious to me that we would be reviewing it tonight. Otherwise, I would have spent a lot more time reading through it.
I'm sorry.
So, and it wasn't, you know, an action item on the
Right.
agenda until we got here tonight, so. I just would suggest that maybe
You know
we
what,
can
I didn't redo
think-
the stupid agenda, it was my
think-
fault, yeah.
Well, even, it doesn't have to necessarily be the agenda redone, but just a
Yeah.
note saying, hey, this will be, please read, you know, say,
Yeah.
we're gonna discuss and probably have some action, so. It also provides more transparency to
Well, we
people who
can,
follow our
we
meetings as
have,
well.
we have two choices too. We can meet again between now and the 26th.
I'm not
and have
concerned
fun.
about that, but I'm just saying as a overall,
Yeah.
you know, it would be good to get, I appreciate the reminders about when things are due, because we all have multiple priorities, and
Mhm.
this just helps me prioritize, so.
But I'm going to throw that out there, that we can have action on this tonight, or we could meet again. That is entirely, I'm open to doing either.
Same.
Prefer to do it tonight. I don't know that I have much availability.
The 26th, we have to meet prior to that?
Merry Christmas
Yeah,
from the legislature, from the
I'm
AOE.
not available the next 2 evenings, and
The 26th is not interesting to you?
I think Friday and Saturday nights are probably out for most people, so.
No sense of fun in this group. Right now, please.
You're not offering anything to drink.
We're in a school, Jody.
Is there a consensus that we'd like to just deal with this now in some fashion? I'm seeing a nod.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh, good. Oh, good. I've got four heads nodding. As a teacher, that's like the best. So you've heard the update through the hearing. This has to either be recommended. The only thing that has to be done by the 26th is if we want consideration under the Section 9 of Act 46, which is an AGS structure, it has to, this proposal has to be in by the 26th. And there has been much back and forth with Donna Russo Savage that, you know, you can make changes in the month of January. But you have to, yes, but you have to have something in as a placeholder to say, yes, we are interested in pursuing Section 9 under Act 46. So this has been the work of 6 weeks, putting together what our best shot is at this point. And I'm happy to take feedback back to the committee from the board on any of this. And discuss with the board changes you want made. If you're interested in pursuing this, if you're not, I'm done. So it's a win-win situation for me.
So, can I go? Sure. So, just one question on page 1, third paragraph from the bottom.
Mhm.
It says, by mid-December, the 2 Putney board members also officially joined you.
I think that's not true.
Because
Yeah.
you said, yeah.
I
so-
think that's not true. Somebody had said that at the meeting, that they were official
Okay.
now, and I think Steve put that change in, so that needs to be changed, yes.
And And then in the middle there too, on this executive summary, it talked about voter turnout was high. I think it would be great if we could put in percentages.
Okay.
You know, any time that you can provide actual data.
I actually have that data, and I'm gonna
So-
put that in the appendix.
That's not
the
the
turnout.
turnout.
That's
That's the
percentage.
results, yeah. So I have that,
Okay.
so. And then in the executive summary on page 2, the approximate 1% reduction in costs. I didn't know if that was an item, it could be itemized. I know that was something that was required when the study committee did it.
Yeah, I have that, I have one,
And what's that based on? you know, so.
I based it on, I did a PICUS, did I include it? I know I copied it. I know I printed it today. I actually have now put that in as one method, one idea that we discussed using a PICUS Odin analysis. It's now in the appendix, equitable staff reductions in WSSU one method, and looked at, okay, what does PICUS say? We're taking the nurses and keeping them full-time, and then what might be an equitable way to do it. This is not what we would do. That would be the Opportunity and Equity Committee that would talk about that. But just taking a really difficult situation and trying to put numbers to it and a way to think about it. So that is in the appendix. I did not cite in the executive summary that's in the body that fills it out when I'm referring to, because we do talk about it more in detail there.
And then also on page 2, that middle paragraph about the leadership councils. In each grade school, we had it in each school. In the study committee, I didn't know if that was a change in this.
No, I think it should
proposal.
be each school, where is it? Yes.
And then in the background, it's just, I think, just in, so to be correct, let's see, was it 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph down, it was actually in February of 2016 that the AOE advised. There was a letter that came, it wasn't June.
Yeah, I got that too.
And then in the next paragraph, Vernon did not, they withdrew from BOHS District 6. I think that's an important distinction. And I'm wondering, likewise, the remaining small towns lost a potential partner under a merger which might have had blah, blah. You know, I don't know, I don't understand that comment.
I think the comment there is that
Are you talking about
we had
Marlboro?
4 small towns. No, we had 4 small towns
Yep.
and Brattleboro, and so then it became three small towns and Brattleboro. So the voting percentage actually changed from the beginning of the study committee process by
Okay.
Vernon leaving. So it was
I find that confusing. It sounds to me like there was another partner
I see what you're
outside of
saying.
the district.
okay.
That's why I asked about Marlboro.
I gotcha.
So-
No, I can see where you went with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to have fresh eyes.
And then just, there's a couple spots, tax incentives. I know the AOE has always referred to them as transition funds, so maybe the wording
Okay.
there.
Yep.
And then on page 4, and I don't know if it's referenced through the rest of the document, but I do take exception to the phrase super board, because the composition of the Act 40, of the proposed merged board really, in essence, isn't any different than the current BOHS board in terms of size and structure. So,
It would be.
a unified board.
Unified
Yeah.
union board.
I feel like there's a negative connotation
Okay.
there, and if we're trying to be sort of neutral when we're talking about this.
I think it sounds positive to me. That's sort of
Super
things like
board?
Superman.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't.
Can I make a comment about that? It seems like the composition might have been the same a number of people, is that what you meant, as exist on the BUHS board? Is that what you were referring to?
It's similar in structure. Yes.
Right, okay. I think the term kind of refers to the fact that it would govern even more schools that are outlying
Okay.
from the centralized,
I understand
BUHS
that,
board.
but I'm sharing that I find the terminology of super board to be frankly offensive. And I've not liked it from the get-go.
It just means, to me, super board just means very large board. But
But it's not any
Governing a
large,
large-
it's not any
governing a large-
larger than the high school board.
Right, but governing a large
Yeah, but that would be
thing.
part of the
That's
unified.
the way I see it, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I don't think that's gonna be a big stopper
No,
for
no.
anybody to change it to a unified union district board. I don't think that's a find and replace.
yeah.
I
And
think the
then,
difference, the connotation is different, is what you're saying.
yeah, having served on the study committee for 2 years and been, part of that, and a very active member of that group, super board was not well received.
No.
So,
I would suggest proposed unified union board or
Yeah.
something.
Sure.
Because there is no unified union board that exists right now. And maybe it should go in quotes, frankly, because,
yeah. Yeah, we don't know what it would be like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, in that next paragraph, at the end, where it talks about the outlying towns versus the 4 to 6 representatives from Brattleboro, I feel like that's a little misleading, because a single representative, it could be 1 to 3 representatives from an outlying town, depending on the at-large membership.
But you're, you're right, the 6 is the bad part there, not
Yeah.
the single, right?
So it'd either be like 1 to 3 representatives from an outlying town.
No, because I think you would, on a
Or
leadership.
4 to 6.
On a leadership council, I read this because I had that same thing, and then, but I didn't get to the second part, because the leadership council, it couldn't be an at-large person that would be here, it would be one representative here in Dummerston.
Oh, okay.
So then it would be 1 versus 4.
Okay, yep.
So that was the,
And then in the next paragraph, that qualified WSDSU administration representatives would attend the leadership council meetings. It wasn't, that to me implies Lyle and Frank level, and wasn't really, it was more the building administrator with active staff and teachers and interested
but I
community
think,
members.
I think that was the point, that then it's less vertical integration throughout the organization for people on a leadership council, so then it just becomes one person vertically integrating up to the SU level. I think that's the intent of that paragraph.
I don't understand what you're saying. So who is WSDSU administration
That would
in
be
this?
Lyle, Julianne, Paul, and Frank.
Okay. Well, it was never my understanding that Lyle central office staff would be parts of the leadership councils.
Right, that's what this is saying. So then everything would go through that single board member up to an SU level.
Okay.
That was it.
I think there might be a better way of saying this because.
Okay, because I'm having to explain it.
Yeah, because it's not clear.
Okay.
And then on page 5, the second and third paragraphs, I wrote, why is this necessary? We're really talking about, I mean, I know this is background, but it's talking about is really, I feel like it's sort of railing against Act 46 in a way, you know, and statutes, and I don't understand the relevance with respect to the proposal, so.
So I think
And
the advantage of the AGS committee was that anybody could be at the table.
Okay.
So all stakeholders could be present. We could have teachers there, we
Yep.
could have parents there, we could have grandparents there, and that it's a different process. And that actually arose from.
Well, can you
a
just
real-
say that instead of all
Yeah.
this?
I'll see what I can do.
I kind of like the juxtaposition, frankly, myself. I thought it outlined kind of the process that went on, and then the process as the Alternative Governance Committee had held the process, frankly. And, you know, there's hundreds of hours of tape if people want to look at some of the contentious meetings that happened at the study committee level, and I think it's gently suggesting that the process that was engaged by the Alternative Governance Committee was different than the process that was engaged with at the study committee level, and I frankly appreciate that.
Why wouldn't you just say it that way?
I think it does. That's how I read it.
Because I feel like it sort of meanders around, and I think it could be simplified and be much clearer.
I mean, it also arose from when I took the first stab at this. There was a University of Maine study that talked about if you want mergers to succeed, you should have all stakeholders at the table,
Yeah.
which was really interesting.
Yeah.
So it sort of arose from that and then sort of morphed to make it more readable. But I will bring that back to the AGS committee and see if we can make that a little more crisp so that it reads a little more quickly. But I think the point was that legislatures, the statute doesn't
Yeah,
guarantee
the population
best.
imbalance of the communities which determine representation on the committee paired with the requirement that every district include a school director, it's just like, it all sort of gets lost.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really nice to say, these were the things we learned from the study committee's work, we learned from their process. And we incorporated the better parts with the more stakeholders,
Right.
a broader representation because of the greater flexibility of the law,
Coming back to how I had it originally written.
And we
right?
feel our outcomes are
Because of that.
are
because, yeah.
are better for that.
I'm glad this is on tape.
So
I like how you said that. It's actually a little bit more how I had it first written, actually.
Right. So, educational equity, the one paragraph about universal meals, I thought if we unified, we would all qualify for universal meals, no?
No, that was
Is
a
that
mistake.
true, Lyle, or?
Not as they are presently being done in Brattleboro. It would depend on your direct certification numbers. That's how
Okay.
they're able to offer free meals to
Okay.
everyone.
And Putney looked into it and they said it was prohibitively expensive
Yep.
for them, so it wouldn't be really feasible for us for certain, so.
And the last paragraph under educational equities, or educational equity, I don't know that it really does service to what the study committee data showed, that there were significant inequities in the opportunities that we provided to students. So, while consolidation is not a simple solution, remediation isn't going to provide more opportunities to kids necessarily. I guess I'd like to see that paragraph expanded to include more about the programming.
This was outcomes, student outcomes, though, not programming, and the programming we talk about so the programming we talked
okay.
about in the beginning,
Sorry.
and this was the outcome piece. which we didn't
Yeah.
really discuss at the study. I mean, we had the data, but we didn't really discuss it. So, but I
Alright.
did put a bunch of data in there
Okay,
for your
well,
reading pleasure. Yeah.
and on page 7, the second paragraph,
Mhm.
about appropriate staffing levels. I think the Dummerston School librarian, instrumental music teacher, they're hired by separate employers, and the fact that they have full-time employment was a bit of a chance. The same with the Guilford art teacher, the Brattleboro Guilford art teacher. That wasn't anything planned necessarily at the SU level. It was a position that opened up, and
I think, like when
And if
we
you-
hired the phys ed person, we went forward and split that position with Oak Grove, is it? Where
No.
Kim goes? Yeah, and so I think that was done
okay.
replacing an existing thing to try to keep that.
I just know in the past that has not been planned. It was more by chance that there were openings. And I know that was the case with the Brattleboro and Guilford, because when they interviewed the person.
So I'll talk to Jo Carroll about that and sort of find out what her
You might want to
historic-
talk to Jill Stahl-Tyler too about
Yeah.
the Brattleboro Guilford, or Kim,
Yeah,
because
Kim's on the.
my understanding was that it was not
Committee.
planned, it was a happy
Guilford had
coincidence.
a part-time person who had
Yeah.
been employed. Brattleboro had a retirement,
Yep.
which opened up another part-time position. Had Brattleboro not hired that person, I
Yeah.
don't know where she'd be if she'd still be part-time.
Yeah.
For the PE, Oak Grove principal and Jill Carroll interviewed together, because that has traditionally been a shared
Right.
position, so they worked together to hire that.
And then do we give, for student outcomes, do we give data
Yes.
in here? Okay.
That's in the appendix.
Yep, that was in my,
I just can't figure out how to format everything in all the different directions to be able to put it on a page. So it's on paper. I can do it on a computer, I can do it with a stapler though.
I do know with transparency and accountability on page 9, the SU budget, the last paragraph there, one of the advantages that we saw as a study committee was that the taxpayers would actually be voting on that portion of it, and that's not really reflected in
Oh,
here.
this is where we are now? And so I think we talk, let me see if you put that in. Hold on.
So I think that was a real strength.
Increasing, no, but yeah, it's not. I know I gave that as a comment that I wanted that put back in, but maybe it didn't fall back in. Let me put it, I'll write it here, Amy, because I had that as a comment.
Yeah, the good guy.
Oh, okay.
And then just under, on page 11, 12, just the section about the Regional Education Assistant Fund. I know that we had discussed that at the study committee meetings, and there was some question about the legality of doing it. So that would be my only question there, is whether or not it's actually legal to do it, and then data showing anticipated cost savings.
So I think that that is a recommendation for the Opportunity and Equity Committee to consider. I don't think it's the meat and potatoes of what the Opportunity and Equity Committee would provide, but I am looking to get some legal opinion on
Okay.
the ability to do that, so.
And then, is it appropriate, the other thing too would be, I have it underlined, private fundraising efforts, it's in the third paragraph. You know, is that really appropriate for public education to be soliciting? I mean, I know we get grants and that kind of thing, but it may be just that wording there might be tweaked because it,
Didn't we
What do
get
you
an answer
feels-
about that?
Feels a little
Endowments,
funny.
like the Brattleboro has an endowment, which is all private funds.
right, okay, so it's okay.
So I think
And it actually seems to be legal.
Okay.
It is, I think it is.
Okay, thank you.
As long as we're not paying for a teacher, right, instruction.
Yeah, I think there were probably some limitations.
But that even sounded like it was iffy, the way, when you read
Yeah.
on, so whatever.
Yeah, but I do think with the endowment, the advice that Brattleboro Town got is that it should not take, you shouldn't be using the endowment to purchase something that the budget should be providing.
Does the report at all talk about how, I know the governor's letter came out about staffing ratios. Does it talk about, it might be appealing to the AOE, to talk about how this might be able to plan?
Well, I
It
think-
would strengthen it,
Yes, I agree. In our, in the example
Mm.
that I put in my little PICUS calculator, I didn't look at the staff numbers, how it would be overall. I looked at the PICUS numbers, bringing them down, but that's,
Right.
there's,
Yeah.
bodies are bodies and how it
Right.
works. And so that would be part of the opportunity. I think if boards are talking to each other and saying, what you want help starting this program, but you've got 3 teachers beyond what we have,
Right.
that's an interesting conversation to have, sort of
Right.
saying, how, sort of a race to be the most efficient school in a way, and you're still producing results. How are you doing it? How are you allocating your
Right.
resources? So, I think that's a space actually to put that in there.
Oh.
That he just didn't put that in with.
I think it's obviously a ton of work, but any way that you can address the barriers, look at the current issues that we're facing, because that's the lens that the AOE and the State Board of Education is going to be looking at it through, right?
Mhm.
So the governor's letter, if there's ways that this plan can address it, and then, what's the other one? The big one for me is addressing the obstacles that we know we face in our current structure, in terms of reaching over into each other's districts, and how those obstacles can be removed or reduced significantly. I think would go a long way, because it would make it, that would allow for the greater efficiencies that we're trying to seek.
Right.
And reduce the overall spending, so. And I don't know how we,
I think that's what we've been trying to drive to with
Right.
looking at things SU-wide and benchmarking and talking about, okay, you want to add this, you want to add this, you want to add this, okay, let's try to make this easier as an SU, let's investigate an agency fund, let's investigate these things.
Right.
I also feel like, wow, we came up with so many ideas in 6 weeks of looking at it and through the study committee process as well that I kept saying, wait a minute, let's stop thinking about the answer here and let's get this AGS done for now. So it's a little bit, because we aren't the Opportunity and Equity Committee as much fun as we're having being that.
Right.
So we tried to put in some ideas and things that really made sense, like funding a pre-K program or something like that
Right.
would really make sense for the SU-wide. It would come back to everybody in dividends for a long time if there was
Right.
if we were bringing down special ed costs. But I really tried to keep us moving forward to not do the work of the future Opportunity and Equity Committee. Because I can't make promises too much, but I think that is clearly our intent, is
Correct.
to.
Create a framework.
Yes, thank you. I might use that word somewhere.
To be able to do those things later on.
Yeah. And, you know, just overall, it's a lot of information. So I think the more specific and the shorter we can be in terms of what, in more specific and more concise, you know, delivery of the message. Because if you think about it, the AOE and the state board are gonna have to read how many of these, you know, and.
We're doing better than some
Yeah,
days.
I realize that, but, you know, it does feel like there is, you know, some redundancy
Room
in
for-
terms of the information,
Yeah.
you know, so maybe there could be some pairing that could be done without losing the content and the intent
Yep.
of the
I do think
overall.
that we wrote the executive summary to kind of really be a good redundancy so that somebody would say, okay, this is what I'm interested in. Because,
Yep.
you know, I used to do that in college.
Yep.
Read about that. That's what I'm interested in.
Yep.
But, yes. There's different writing styles out there. Mine tends to be a little bit more. Maybe we can move it just a little over towards the more techie, nerdy side of writing that I tend to live in. But I have to take my hat off to Steve Redmond, who's been like, whew.
And I think Andy Davis has added some stuff lately too. Like he was working with Steve.
We have some great, intelligent people in this community, in this greater at-large WSU community.
Christina, your spreadsheet that goes on to, oh, these aren't numbered.
Sorry.
It just seems like the last page of it, where it's missing data for other considerations. Is that just not,
Other considerations.
you know, when you have the different, schools across the top?
Oh, that's left over from this, that's a study committee document.
Okay, so that just wasn't, okay.
So that was always as it was listed in
Okay.
the study committee document, and we have a huge, I can't figure out how to print it out
Okay.
for this, a huge programmatic
Oh.
overview for
Yeah.
it's a bear, and so I
Sure.
could not, I was about ready to toss my computer today trying to print this out for,
Just tell me.
I should have had you do, I know, I should have had, but it ended.
Did you want me, I can chunk it up for you, I can print, I have it, so I can print each town
That might
page.
be- Or
for
we
two
could, if you could
pages.
email it to, if you could send it, share it to everybody. And as long as we're not applying all, nobody's working on it, but just send a copy to everybody of the programmatic overview, that would be,
Okay, yeah.
you can just reply to something I've sent you in the last
Yep.
24 hours.
Could do that. So you want everything that I shared with you?
Yeah, and just don't work on it, don't reply, I'll just send it as a copy. If it's a working document and somebody touches it, then
Yeah.
it's potential violation of open meeting law is my
Yeah.
only concern, so just send a copy so people can.
So don't PDF it.
It's going to be a copy of the, I'm sorry, programmatic overview. Is that right?
Programmatic overview and historic tax data, I think is the
And do you want the baseline demographics?
Yes. Sorry, that's what yes. was the other one. They've gone together in my head. They're both big.
I think maybe what, for me, I know different writing styles, but it feels very, for lack of a better word, verbose. And I'm thinking, on the executive summary, if you really wanted to drive home your points, maybe a bulleted list, of what you think the real
Zingers
strengths,
are?
yeah, would really strengthen this. It'd be the leadership council, it'd be the, whatever, the agency fund, or,
Yeah.
But I think they still have to be flushed out.
Oh, yeah, but
Oh,
I think
yeah.
she's just saying in terms of,
yeah, we want to,
Almost
we
like
want
a
to.
table of contents, in a way, but
Yeah.
nicer.
Well, yeah, but, if I'm just trying to think like a state board ed, or, having read many executive summaries, it's always very helpful to me to have the bulleted items, so I can go through it in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
versus taking hours to sort of tease out the information.
yeah, I know in another district, they had a big to-do, because somebody was a very long-winded writer and someone was very terse, and they almost came to blows as an AGS committee, so we're not coming to blows. I'm not
No.
suggesting
No.
that, but I'm saying that, it's
No.
interesting that writing style is a big,
But yeah, I guess
Depending on
my
the-
overall comment is anytime we can plug data in, or reference data,
Yeah.
I think it really strengthens the argument. And then just the, really highlighting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of data to be put in the appendixes.
but I think to incorporate it in the body too, and
Yeah, you have to make it
reference
easy.
Yeah, make it
Right.
easier to find, yeah.
Yeah, we want to spoon feed it.
Yes.
We don't want to have them hunt. So,
What'd you do, give them sleeping pills?
Video.
Thank you.
This committee keeps giving and giving. Any other questions, thoughts, input?
I like that, I like narrative, and so I like that it tells a story, and I think the story is important, especially given the history of all that's gone on within the WSCSU leading up to this point. I think it's important that it tells that story to the state board. I mean, there's no question that the vote was overwhelmingly against the proposed Articles of Agreement, and that's not the whole story, but it's a part of the story, and it should be there, as this story gets told to the board. It's not just, hey, we just came up with this thing. I think it's part of a narrative that we got to this point in the first place, and so I think the executive summary is helpful in that regard. By fleshing out that story a little bit more than perhaps the board has heard.
Well, we have the
Or
month
some
of
sort of
January.
hybrid of both.
Sorry.
Or maybe do some sort of hybrid of both.
Well,
Table
I'm
contents
I'm
would
not
be
saying
it.
shorten the story, or
Yeah.
or drop content. I'm just
Yeah.
saying look at ways editing, so that your message is very direct
Mm-hmm.
and factual, and it leaves the reader, with clear, convincing evidence that this is
Yeah.
going to work. And I don't get that right now,
January is a good month to do that, to work on some of that.
Yes, when it's minus whatever.
Yes,
and-
be doing anything.
but stay home.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I don't know, no
Yeah.
Christmas shopping to do, no cookie parties. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? I have also included on the back a cover letter potentially in the event that we are going to send this up. To the Agency of Education, but I'm ahead of myself, but I would entertain a motion if anyone is interested in sending the AGS to the Agency of Education and the Board of Education for their consideration of our Section 9 submittal.
I'll make that motion. I move that I move that the Dummerston Town School Board,
You want me to type while you
School,
speak?
no, it's okay. I'll do it at the same time, slowly. I move that the Dummerston Town School Board approve the alternative governance document presented tonight with edits as deemed necessary by the Alternative Governance Committee prior to the December 26th deadline, so that it arrives on time.
Second.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion that's on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. I have a copy, so the letter's in the back here, and I'm sorry, it was written this afternoon when I said, oh my gosh, if we move this today, I should have a letter. So it was the last item of business, if people I can prevail upon you for another minute or two, just to take a quick scan.
I didn't get that copy, but I didn't
Oh,
take
sorry.
one of it. I'm sorry, I printed out the one. Thanks.
Here.
Do you have extra copies? 'Cause I don't have that copy either.
All these people that brought their own paper, how good of you. Jody, you could make a, I could I'll make a copy.
No, you can send it to me later. Just read it,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I just want to be able to take notes on it. I don't need to read it, I just want to, if there's comments.
Just in the first paragraph, lowering the educational spending, I think there's two ways to interpret that. I think if you're specific about reducing our budgetary spending.
Sure, got it.
Because our educational, if I
Right.
read that, I think of per pupil,
cost,
and
okay.
it's, yeah. So that would be one suggestion that I would
Okay.
have. So.
What good kids you have.
Jinx it.
You should have just dropped them at my house if you had children issues. I would, anytime. Caroline's, she's CPR than a whole 9 yards. She's good.
That's your volunteer kilt.
Right, well, don't let them near kelp, but Caroline's good.
Hey, Joe, Carol.
Oh, thank you. Or, oh, maybe I put one in.
And maybe just, this is nitpicky, I'll admit it, but at the last town meeting day, just say town meeting 2017.
Okay.
It's just a comma.
Oh, 2 periods there.
And in the middle of that paragraph, after the decisive vote against the Articles Agreement, comma, by the electorate of all 4 towns as to consider a merger, should be another comma.
Yeah.
Hearing for help.
That comma is going away right after the Articles of Agreement. After the decisive vote against the Articles of Agreement by the
Right.
electorate of all 4 towns.
Right, I'll move it. Just over where I need it.
Do we want to talk about, mention the 2 dates that we've had in here with our local, that we had it on the 28th and then today? Neither rain nor snow nor
Yes.
can prevent a forum.
Today's the 19th all day, right? You think that's best put in the second to last paragraph, maybe?
I
In the
don't know.
weeks following. Yeah, I feel like that's like the little.
Where do we
parrots.
think it should
Yeah.
go in?
Kind of makes sense from the storytelling standpoint.
I'm gonna suggest in the second to last paragraph, the second to last line says, weigh in on town meeting day. I'm just gonna say weigh in at capital town, capital meeting to ensure that the
Okay.
AGS.
Yep.
Is it a WSESU AGS or is it a Dummerston Town School Board AGS?
I don't think that there's.
I don't think it's
We can
SU.
only,
I think it's just AGS.
AGS, yeah, you're right.
Or submit this AGS proposal?
This
Yeah.
AGS proposal.
yeah.
Do you want to add Act 49 with Act 46 or just Act 46?
I could add that on. Just slash that on.
And sort of similar to what I said about the executive, or the document itself, but maybe a few bulleted points. Why it's the best fit, you know? I don't know. That's up to you as the author of the letter.
I think my creativity is hitting an all-time low right about now. so.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I don't think Christina sleeps.
Is it after 8? Yes, it's after 8.
Oh, yes, after 8 o'clock, Christina turns into a pumpkin. So could I entertain a motion that we send this letter as the cover letter with the changes as noted?
Yep, with leaving you the freedom to edit
Okay.
as you deem necessary. I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays-
Sorry.
Nays or abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you, Michael.
Do you have to have everybody sign it or chair to
I'll
sign?
sign it
Chair.
on behalf of the board, because
Yeah,
the board has
friendly
moved it.
amendment to include signed by the chair.
Sure, thank you. So, we have to vote in the friendly amendment?
Yes.
So,
I need a second.
I move.
all those in favor?
Aye.
What about a second?
She was the second.
Amy seconded.
Oh, I don't heard a move.
I'll second.
Okay.
Another question. Do you include in here that it was the unanimous agreement of the board?
No, I think this is written now, so,
Okay, just curious, because some boards may send it out with just a 3-2 or something like that.
I think I'm gonna postpone pre-K discussion until January.
Yes,
We don't have
please.
budget
Yes.
information, so there's nothing we can do with it.
Please.
It's after 8 o'clock and everybody's begging for mercy.
Especially this week.
Thank you, Lyle, for doing this. Thank you, everybody, for going through this in a very short time frame, and everybody's good suggestions, and
And
I
thank you,
appreciate it.
BCT.
So our
Thank you, BCTV.
next
I'm-
meeting is the second Tuesday in January?
It's regularly scheduled. I haven't gotten on it yet, so.
Okay.
Is that the one? Or was that the first?
Look at you go, girl. You didn't let Frank at this, I see.
No.
Tuesday, the 9th.
Yep.
You have
And,
additions to the
we'll do
agenda.
We'll do budget.
Yes. It's on the, I have the sort of the
Okay.
plan laid out in the budget in the, because there's something else on that day.
Paul's coming for something, I can't remember what.
ESPEC?
Is that what it is?
Testing, I think?
He told me he
Assessment?
was planning on being here.
So-
I don't know.
If you have any ads, let me know, maybe by like, you know, the 2nd or 3rd of January, if there's anything needs to be added to the agenda, so I can get it to our fabulous Barb Norkowski. And I skipped committee reports, but Michael is a representative to the Finance Committee. It'd be lovely to see the Finance Committee minutes getting on there within like a 2 to 3 week period, timeframe.
Agreed. It's a problem to have.
Okay.
Or just having regular updates as part of verbal updates too, I think.
Right.
As part of our.
Right.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
So, thank you all. Have a very nice holiday.
Yeah.